For those who don't know, my name is Matthew Bailey, and I actually grew up in a small northern community in Alberta called Fort.McMurray. So it's probably not so small today, but we decided to come back and revisit it. I haven't been back in about 7 or 8 years, and of course something very significant happened since then in 2016 with the Fort.McMurray fire. So definitely one of the biggest natural disasters in Canadian history, and it burnt a lot of the city down. So I really wanted to come back and check it out again and show Karla and you where I grew up. Right now we're actually at my first house, 133 Alpine Court, where I grew up from probably, close to 0 years of age up to about 12. So this is where I remember being a kid and running around and creating stores and selling bugs in jars and all kinds of stuff like that. And I'm actually surprised that the old basketball hoop is still there. It looks pretty bad. I can't believe no one's taken that down yet, but I shot a lot of hoops here. It was a fun time, and it looks very, very different right now, because this is where you can really see on one side of the court is this house, which is still intact, and all the houses, and on the other side they're all brand new because they all got burnt down. And even the forest, this used to be all trees around you, and now you can see very far. So it's just, yeah, it looks very different now.
For me, growing up in a big city, it's hard to imagine how it is to grow up in such a small and secluded town in northern Canada. But when Matthew tells me all the stories when he was growing up, it seems that he had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a great place to grow up, especially as a kid. Lots of nature. Even right behind us right now it looks pretty barren, but this was all trees before the fire. And we're only a 1-minute walk from the house I just showed you on Alpine Court. So as a kid we would literally take the quad in the summer or the skidoo in the winter and come just right up the sidewalk into the woods, and you can go for days and days and find cabins and stay at them and stuff like that. So I don't have that anymore, so now I really think back and I miss that kind of stuff. And I remember even being maybe 10 and my dad wasn't home, and I would just hop on the quad myself and go for a drive in the woods. And when I think back, it's kind of crazy.
Yes, it is.
Another thing that surprised Karla, because she's from Mexico City of all places, so really big, is that I walked myself to school, even at 7 years old, 8 years old. It is right across the street, so we're just coming right now from Alpine Court, and it's probably a 2-minute walk. But it seems like a big deal when you're a kid, and this is the sidewalk where I killed so many black ants. I feel bad now, but
yeah, you were a killer.
As a kid, you really didn't think about that stuff, I guess. So now, just a 2 to 3 minute walk from the house I showed you on Alpine Court, we're at the school where I went to from kindergarten to about grade 8. So most of my younger school years were here. As you can tell, it's a Catholic school, and I actually went to a Catholic school my whole life, even high school, even though I'm not Catholic or religious at all, but it's the school that was the closest, I guess. And so many memories here, including my first crushes.
Oh, what was the name of your first crush?
I don't remember them now. I remember one, Sonia, that I told you I delivered chocolate bars into her mailbox with love letters.
Oh, so cute. Well, Sonia, yeah. If you're looking at this video and you remember
Say
Matthew,
hello in the comments. I had some crushes on teachers as well, of course, here.
Oh.
But yeah, so many memories here. But about halfway through grade 8, I changed schools because we moved to a different part of town. So that's when it all came to an end. This may just look like a simple field, but for me it's so many memories, because this is when I walked to school, I actually walked through the field in the back, because that's where the playground is. So usually you'd meet all the kids there before going into class. And there's tons of stories here. I'll keep them short, but I remember getting beat up here once by a gang of 10 or 15 people.
Oh,
they didn't hurt me too bad, but a couple punches and stuff like that.
That was me. How old were you?
I don't know, maybe 10 or 9 or something.
Oh.
I remember them taking off my shirt and stuff like that, just trying to humiliate you, I guess. I don't know. But and then there was a hole, I remember, in the bottom of the building, and me and my cousin went there and we found our first Playboy magazine.
And how was it?
It was good. I learned a lot that day. As you probably know, hockey's the main sport in Canada, and right behind the school that I grew up in is a hockey rink, and this is an outdoor hockey rink that I remember spending so much time in as a kid in the winter time. I would just walk over with my skates, or this is where my dad taught me how to skate, and he barely knows how to skate. I used to think he was awesome, and now it's like, no, not very good. But no, so much, I don't know, there's a lot of memories here, a lot of games, and I didn't join organized hockey until I was like 12 or 13, so this is where I learned, pretty much. And still looks the same.
And I remember the first time that Matthew went down to Mexico, I was so excited to see him in action skating on ice, and then he fell and scratched his elbow.
But why? Say the reason.
Well, because he's used to skating hockey skates, which they don't have kind of like a, how you call it?
Yeah, the ones...
They're different from the artistic skates.
Figure skate.
Figure skating. So in Mexico, when you rent skates, they're the figure skating skates. So he tripped on that little piece at the front, and that's why he fell. But yeah, he looks like a pro.
Back in the 70s and 80s, Fort.McMurray was home to a huge boom thanks to the oil industry. So a lot of people moved here from all across the country. Of course, there's been many booms since, but in those days it was mostly people from across Canada. So a lot from Quebec and a lot from Newfoundland, and that's where my dad and my mom are from. So I had a lot of family here because they had a huge families. They each had about 12 siblings. So I had, I don't know, maybe 15 aunts and uncles living in Fort.McMurray, and so of course many of them also died here. So now we're at the Abbasan Cemetery. I haven't been back here in a long time, and I just wanted to see if I could find the gravestones of some of my aunts, my uncles, and even my brother-in-law. I found Dan. It's been a long time. 1995, the same year as the first fires that I remember. But this is my sister's first husband, and he died when he was just, what, 25? Yeah, 25 or 26 in a car accident. So I remember that day so vividly because I was only like 11, and yeah, it really struck me quite hard. So I'm now on the way to play hockey with my cousin for the first time. I mean, I grew up with him playing hockey outside, but like never indoors with gear and that kind of stuff. But it's kind of a cool thing because we're going to the same arena, Frank Lacroix, that I grew up playing from like age 11 to 17. So, and I haven't been here since. So it's been 20 years or so since I've played hockey in Fort Mac. This arena brings back a lot of memories. It's where I played hockey a lot. It's where my dad got in trouble so many times for screaming at the ref and blowing the air horn, which I see is not allowed anymore. But I spent most of my time right here in the penalty box, so I'll try to stay out today.
Did you guys win?
We won.
Yes?
No, I don't know.
No? It's because there's no score.
Hard to say. We'll say we lost by 1, but it was a nail biter, you know?
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm so tired. Behind me now is the house I grew up in from age 12 to 20. So the first house in Abbasan was from 0 to 12, and that was a little bit more of a, maybe a rougher neighborhood. This was like a new development on the other side of town. So the oil industry is a big industry here, as you can probably hear with all the trucks making loud noises around us. But as my parents worked there longer, of course they saved up more money, and my mom wanted a newer house, so this was brand new built when we moved in there. And Even though I didn't feel as much in the wild up here, but ironically we're still surrounded by the boreal forest because I was going for a jog once around 18 years old and I ran into a bear just 100 meters from this house, and I came back pretty terrified. They said I looked pretty white, so you never know what you'll run into up here because no matter where you are, you're surrounded by the forest. Although Fort.McMurray was a fort at one time, home to a fur trading post back in the 1700s, the big boom and the reason for the city it is today is the oil industry. So it's home to, I believe, what's the second or third most oil in the world, definitely the most in Canada, and that's what caused everyone to move here for work, including my parents that came from both Newfoundland and Montreal, and pretty much all my family, aunts and uncles, parents, all worked or work right now at Syncrude and Suncor. So right now we're actually out at Syncrude where they've created this kind of small outdoor museum called the Giants of Mining to show you some of the tools they've used in the past to extract the oil. I think nowadays it's actually even bigger, but as you can see, that's a big shovel right behind me. So this was used to scoop the sands, and they would actually, my dad drove one of the big trucks, so it would deposit that sand into the back of the truck and he would take it somewhere. I don't know how the whole process works, but it's pretty amazing. The oil here in Fort.McMurray is quite different than what you think of in places like Saudi Arabia and Texas. So here it's kind of it's basically oil sand, so they have to extract it. But this is the truck that my dad drove, and the shovel that we were standing in can actually, in one scoop, put 100 tons of oil sands in the back of one of these trucks, and they can haul about 400 tons at a time. I don't know if they're bigger today, so you can imagine if this thing hauls 400 tons, how big these sites are. And I've flown over them before, back when my parents still worked here, and it really feels like you're flying over a city. It's probably bigger than the actual city itself, these mines, but it's pretty impressive, and nowadays they're actually switching to automated trucks. When I think back to why I left Fort.McMurray, I think part of it was because I've always been more interested in business than in working out at the oil site, even though that was where all the money was. And I think a part of me also just wanted to be different and like explore bigger cities. I had never really traveled much, and there was like something in me that wanted to do that. And for some reason I chose Calgary. I don't really know why. Maybe because it was so far away. And a much bigger city. And I remember always going to Edmonton as a kid, and that really felt like New York to me, and going to like West Edmonton Mall and these places like that. But Calgary was just a little further, and I didn't really know anyone there, so it just kind of allowed me to kind of start fresh and reinvent myself. As a kid, especially between the ages of 5 and 15 or so, one of my favorite hobbies was fishing and camping, and I did a lot of that with my dad. And so two of our favorite lakes to go were Gregoire Lake and Engstrom Lake. So right now we're at Gregoire Lake, which is about 25 minutes outside of Fort.McMurray. It's the busier of the lakes because of its obviously close proximity, and I remember it being a little more on like the polluted side. We used to find the fish a little more gross. I remember catching fish here and cutting them open and finding worms in them and stuff. I don't know if it's been cleaned up, but there's a lot of boaters on this lake. It's got a nice campground, a really nice beach, so a lot of my fondest memories with my dad fishing for northern pike was right here in this lake. After Gregoire Lake, we drove another half hour south to Engstrom Lake. So this is the lake and the campground that I remember the most as a kid. This is where I came pretty often with my dad, both in the winter for ice fishing and in the summer for normal fishing in our little boat. And I don't know why I love this lake so much. It's kind of small, it has rainbow trout, they were fun to catch, good to eat, and I love to wake up to the sound of the loons in the morning. And pretty much this is the campgrounds where we camped at, but this is my first time here in 20 years now, and it looks like they've stopped camping here. I don't know why. I feel like maybe they've opened more like mining in the area, which is unfortunate, but either way, I have a lot of memories at this lake. Well, that's the end of this video. I hope you liked having that little insight into how I grew up in a small town in northern Alberta.
Yeah, we hope that you enjoyed this video because I was just fascinated to hear all the stories that Matthew has of his hometown.
Yeah, and she's always been fascinated because I guess growing up in Mexico City, obviously it's very different than when I told her that I live near the forest and would take the quad into the woods for days and stay at cabins and then playing ice hockey outside in the winter, and of course the Northern Lights. So Fort.McMurray is one of the best places in the world to see the Northern Lights. And we've actually come here 3 times to try and show Karla. It hasn't worked out because things do have to line up in your favor, but growing up here I saw them so much, and I remember walking home from house parties and having them like in the sky the whole way home, playing ice hockey under them, going camping and seeing them. So that's one of the things I probably miss the most.
And I actually, it's my first time here in the summer. I've only been here in the winter, and I can see why this town is so pretty. It's full of trees. Now they're turning yellow and red.
And if only you had saw them before the fire.
Yeah, probably was even better.
It was much nicer, but
anyway, we hope that you like this video. If you do, give us a thumbs up.
Hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment, and of course to learn more about Canada, visit our website at mustdocanada.com. But right now we actually have to head back to my aunt's because she's currently looking for some old photos of me as a baby.
Yeah, he was so cute.